Hello everyone, this is Saddam here from 𝗕𝗃 Academy. Recently I had mentioned that Pearson is updating the question bank for summarized written text, and there were a total of 8 new questions. In my previous video, I've already solved one of those new questions. Today, I will be demonstrating the second new question using our very own 𝗕𝗃𝗄𝐻 AI PT practice software, which gives you AI scoring for all the 20 topics of the real test. The scores that you get in 𝗕𝗃𝗄𝐻 AI is highly accurate, and that's the same scores that you would expect in the real test. So let's get going and let's start with the second question. So alright everyone, let's get going. Let's move into the question and let's start with the second summary that I was talking about. I would like to talk about this question here called bank overdraft. Let's have a look at it. Now the first thing that we should ideally do when solving this summary is quickly just skim and scan the question. So in this case, let's have a look. So it says banks provide finance, companies, overdraft, checks, overdraft, pattern, farmer, overdraft, being unable to repay, overdraft. Okay, so one thing I can tell you for sure is this is about overdraft. All right, let's start reading through it. Remember what I mentioned before. Your summary should be between 5 to 75 words, and you're supposed to write the summary in a one single sentence. That means use only one full stop at the end. Okay. Now, when you're doing a summary, identify the topic sentences. Keywords is easy. You will find keywords by the repetition of words. Topic sentences can be found in 3 ways. Again, I'm repeating it. Number 1 is by the introduction. That means the first 1 or 2 sentences, which is over here. Second is conclusion. That means you look at the last 1 or 2 sentences. And one of the most important things is when you're doing or when you're trying to identify topic sentences, focus on conjunctions. Now, what happens is conjunctions are used when you're trying to express something in more detail or you're just trying to add information. So whenever we use conjunctions in a sentence, we're adding information, but adding information about what? The key idea, okay, the main idea. Let's have a look at this. So it says over here, banks provide short-term finance to companies in the form of an overdraft on a current account, okay. The advantage of an overdraft is its flexibility. Fair enough. When the cash needs of the company increases with seasonal factors, the company can continue to write checks and watch the overdraft increase. When the goods and services are sold in and cash begins to flow in, the company should be able to watch the overdraft decrease again. All right, so this is where the flexibility is. They were saying like it is flexible. So the flexibility is explained in these 2 sentences. The most obvious example for business which operates in this pattern is farming. Okay, now 2 things to remember. Usually we say that don't include things from direct quotes. Usually try and avoid examples, but sometimes examples may be a part of a summary, and we'll have a look at it how or why. The farmer uses the overdraft to finance the acquisition of seed for arable farming or feed through the winter for stock farming and to cover the period when the crops or animals are growing and maturing. The overdraft is reduced when the crops or the animals are sold. So from this paragraph, I'll tell you one thing. If I just look at this paragraph by itself, the first thing that I'd like to talk about is this: banks provide short-term finance to companies in the form of an overdraft on a current account. And the main advantage is flexibility. That is one thing that I'd like to mention for sure. Okay. I'm not too sure about this part, whether I should mention farming or not, because I'm in a bit of a conflict, like should I or should I not? But for that, I'm going to go through the rest of the passage as well, okay? And the reason why I think farming would be a part of this, because they have elaborated a lot about like what happens in the farming industry. Okay. The main disadvantage of an overdraft is that it is repayable on demand. The farmers whose crop fails because of bad weather knows the problems of being unable to repay the overdraft. Having overdraft financing increases the worries of those who manage the company. The other disadvantage is that the interest payable on the overdraft is variable. Okay, the other disadvantage, okay, we'll think about this. Okay, when the interest rate increases, the cost of the overdraft increases. Okay, that makes sense because that's the explanation. Furthermore, for small companies, there are often complaints that the rate of interest charged is high compared with that available to larger companies. Okay, the banks answer that the rates charged reflect relative risk, and it is their experience that small companies are more risky. Okay, I will just go with what I learned from this summary is, first of all, they explain what is a bank overdraft. Second thing that they mentioned is like, what is the advantage there? Like, it's very flexible. So that's one key point. So the first key point is the introduction to bank overdraft. The second key point is its flexibility. The third point that I would like to add over here is like the farming industry is using it because they've talked a lot about farming. The fourth factor here is the disadvantage that it is repayable on demand. And the other disadvantage is that the interest payable is variable. Okay, so we will go with these 4 key points. So let me just write it down. So I'm going to just write down over here by increasing the length of the box a little bit. So banks provide short draft on a current account. Okay, the next point I'd like to add over here is the advantage of an overdraft is, okay, the advantage of an overdraft is its flexibility. And the next thing that I'd like to use is the most obvious example is, okay, most okay. And the next thing that I'd like to add is the disadvantages, because that's what I mentioned. So in this case, we can say the main disadvantage of an overdraft. And what was the other thing? And the other disadvantage is that the interest on overdrafts is variable. Okay, let's put a full stop here. Sorry, my bad, variable. Okay, now if you look at this, I have a total of 56 words. Now the main thing over here is I need to combine these sentences. Okay, banks provide short-term finance to companies in the form of an overdraft on a current account, comma, and we will add a comma because this sentence is individual. The advantage of an overdraft is its flexibility. And the advantage of an overdraft is its flexibility, comma, space, moreover. The most obvious example is the most obvious example, let's say it's a little bit incomplete, of a business which operates in this pattern. The most obvious example of a business that uses this feature, I'm just going to change it, okay, is the farming business. Now remember that you are presenting a contradiction here, okay? The contradictions, when you use contradictions, use like contradictory synonyms like however, nevertheless. So I'm going to use over here, I'm going to put a semicolon this time. However, the main disadvantage of an overdraft is that it is repayable on demand, comma, and the other disadvantage is that the interest payable on an overdraft is variable. Okay, now if you look at this over here, I have kind of really just copied the sentences. So this is one conjunction here, and moreover is the second conjunction that I used. However is the third conjunction that I used, and was the fourth conjunction that I used. So what are the 4 key points in the summary? The definition of an overdraft, why is it good, an example that uses this, and fourth is the disadvantages of an overdraft. We are still under word limit. We have 68 words. And remember that this option will not be available in the test. The reason why I give this option to the students is so that they can be careful about the spellings and not make mistake, and they know the difference between the American or the British convention. I'm just going to submit the summary and see what scores we get. There you go. So that's a perfect score of 90. The name of the question is your bank overdraft. And let's look at the answer one more time. It says banks provide short-term finance to companies in the form of an overdraft on current account. And the advantage of an overdraft is its flexibility. Moreover, the most obvious example of a business that uses the feature is the farming business. However, the main disadvantage of an overdraft is that it is repayable on demand, and the other disadvantage is that the interest payable on an overdraft is variable. Now, if you go down, you also have a sample answer that has been graded 90. Okay, that has been graded 90 for the real test as well. So if you have any confusion, you can always practice the summaries and see for yourself, like where are you lacking, what are the differences. Alchemist AI uses exactly the same criteria that's mentioned by Pearson, the 4 components, which is content, form, grammar, and your vocabulary. So we do mark you on these sections. Now make sure that when you're doing your summaries, you do it very carefully, and you should not take a very long time to finalize your summary. Try to finish your summaries in 7 minutes. And one of the most important suggestion that I would offer you here is to make sure that actually you proofread your summary before you hit submit. And I'm pretty sure that getting 7 out of 7 in your summary will not be a hard task at all. So good luck, and I hope that the summaries helped you. So I hope that I was able to help you understand this new question. And for those of you who've got the tests upcoming and would like to try these new questions, just click on try for free and get a 2-day access to the Alchemist AI PT practice software, which is one of the best tools any test taker could use to achieve the desired scores out there. So good luck for your test and smash it.